ion pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
I've got a statement for you then, based on the TNG Voyager DS9 Enterprise, while we're still on that.
Yeah.
And see if you agree. My statement is Deep Space Nine is the best of those shows. Your opinion?
I mean, it's so funny because I first got online in 1994. I actually got the America Online had these like sections where you could go for like, you know, sports and money, and there was a teen section, and an aspiring writer. They were asking people to write for their teen section, and I was like, hey, I'm a teenager, I'll give you the real skinny on being a teenager. and I got it was so corny. I found an old floppy disk of those things, and I think I did pretty good for a 14-15-year-old, but it was absolutely cheesy. But it ended up getting me free America Online, unlimited, before that was even really a billing option. So I was online all the time, and that is where I discovered Star Trek Fandom Online. It was the first thing that I found. And it's funny, as you know, as someone who was just getting into DS9 because Jake Sisko, kid like me, wanted to be a writer. I didn't really. DS9 was a little too weird at first. I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. But by like season 2, season 3,
first 2 seasons,
getting into it. Right. And then I go on these Star Trek forums, and I see these people saying it's not Star Trek. Good sci-fi, not Star Trek. I saw people calling. Yeah, I saw people calling Sisko and later Janeway the affirmative action captains, which is an American policy that we had.
We still get now, unfortunately.
Now, I didn't know that was an insult at the time, because I was like, oh yeah, affirmative action. That's a thing that we have.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I remember that people really didn't like DS9, and then the deep people who did like DS9 really didn't like Voyager. And now Janeway's my girl. I love Janeway. If I had to pick a favorite captain, phaser to the head, it's gonna be Janeway, because I mean,
yeah, I would probably be with you on that as well. Their character is more rounded and more interesting than all the others.
Yeah, and just, you know, the way, like, I love the fact that she was the only one. She really did what we were promised with TOS. She didn't have any admirals to turn to, no Starfleet command. It was just her. Yeah. Laxus. I mean, favorite. Yeah, Captain Janeway. Catherine Janeway.
I'm gonna go with Janeway. I think Janeway as well, because of the situation she was put in. It made for more extreme sort of scenarios, whatever, that showed more of a sort of personality. When we didn't really see a lot of things going terribly wrong before that. I mean, I think my favorite episode is probably In the Pale Moonlight. In the Pale Moonlight, that's right.
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting it wrong. I just only put them because there's a song in the Pale Moonlight as well, so I panicked for a second. Sisko in that is, and Avery Brooks's portrayal of that is phenomenally good. Yeah. So that might be my favorite. But as a whole, I think it's Janeway. And but because of the scenario she put in, I like it when things went wrong and she made tough decisions, sort of thing. And you know, there's a list about like how many people did Janeway murder over there?
Yeah, war crimes, Janeway's war crimes.
Yeah, I think Sisko committed a few as well, to be fair. But
I mean, yeah. But I will say that I do think DS9 did something very important, because again, we think of Star Trek now as this wide, expansive thing that possesses all kinds of stories that it can tell. And when DS9 came out, Star Trek was a show about a ship called Enterprise, where they went to a strange new world, beamed down, met an alien, became friends with it or killed it, and then moved on. And DS9 is the one that most pushed the limits of what Star Trek could be or was. Yeah. And that is important to keeping it going. You know, I think part of the reason Enterprise suffered is that the first 2 seasons, which don't get nearly enough credit, but people were like, oh, just another ship show. You know, they go to a planet, they land on the planet, stuff goes sideways.
Remember what they moaned about Deep Space Nine, though? Because why isn't it a ship?
Yeah. Why? We have to stay here the whole time? Oh.
Yeah. It only really got good when the client came into
Remember the people didn't like Cardassian design. They didn't like the way the tech looked. No. They're like, that's not what it's supposed to look like. Where's the Akutagrams? Which, not nothing. I love me an Akutagram. Don't get me wrong.
No. And like I say, I've seen a few comments in the chat, sort of people saying that, "Oh, you're joking, it Picard and Cisco are better." But and don't get me wrong, that was my point really about Cisco, is there's bits of Cisco, bits of Picard, bits of, like the best of both worlds. Picard in that, his character in that is just amazing. But I feel like the TNG, we never saw, other than the Borg episodes, we never really saw the Federation in trouble, sort of thing. In DS9, we really did. And then obviously Voyager was slightly different again, because just the ship was in trouble the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but
the thing about Star Trek. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the thing to me between a good show and a great show, it's generally the villain. And TNG had the Borg. Voyager had the Borg as well, but 7462 and whatever, yeah, and they had 4 or 5 really good villains, other than the bloody ones from the start, which I've forgotten the name of.
Kazons. Oh, the poor Kazons with their hair.
No, not a fan. But Deep Space Nine with the Dominion was a brilliant villain, and they dragged it through. When the DS9 episodes were good, they were so good. But I tell you, my favourite episode of those, if I had to pick one, again, phaser to the head, I've got to pick one episode. Okay. It's an episode of Enterprise.
Ooh, which one?
Regenerations is probably the episode that I would pick. If I was only allowed to watch one episode of Star Trek again,
yeah,
it would probably be Regenerations. If I was allowed to watch 2, I might watch Best of Both Worlds back to back. But
remind me, Regenerations, which one was that?
It's the one that spins off from First Contact, when
they find the Borg in the Arctic,
and then the Borg books up. Yeah, I love that episode. I just think it's brilliant from beginning to end, and I love how it's spun into First Contact, and I just love that episode. But
one of my favorite, like, timey-wimey episode, to borrow a phrase from a different 60-year-old sci-fi franchise, is maybe that one. I'm not a titles guy. I often don't remember titles, but it's the one where
I had to download it to watch it, so I remember the title. But,
it's the one where Archer gets he has the, like, thing where he forgets. It's the 51st. He gets the 51st dates disease, and like the Earth gets blown up, and they have to have the planet, and T'Pol and Phlox, like that whole episode. There's just something about it that I thought that was such a well done episode, and yeah, that's like the time one that I think really warms my heart.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.